Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Skeel, and I'm the author of You Can Make It Heaven, How to Enrich Your Life with Abundance and Loving. Welcome to video number 2 in my video series, which I'm naming, I have to put on my glasses here, 7 Keys to Make Your Life a Heaven. And today I'm going to be talking about the second key, which is you don't need fixing, you need loving. Before I get into this key, I just want to say that this video series is really about this 7 keys that I'm kind of teasing out of this book. They're all in here, but I wanted to put them in a format where you could watch key by key by key, over the video series and get a greater sense of what it means to create your life as a heaven, and perhaps even take some of these keys and begin to apply them to your life today. So the first key I talked about was all about heaven. What is your heaven? And what it would look like and feel like and be like if you created your life as a heaven. So if you haven't watched video 1, I recommend you doing that. But today we're going to talk about video or key number 2, which is you don't need fixing, you need loving. In my counseling practice, spiritual counseling practice that I did for many, many years. And actually this book is a culmination of many of those stories and people that I've worked with. Time after time, people would come into my office, they would sit down and they would tell me their pain, their hurt, their chaos, their loss, what was going on in their life, their story. And somewhere early on, they would say something like, and I'm sure it has everything to do with me, something must be wrong with me, so fix me. I heard this a lot, and perhaps you can relate to this. I certainly had this approach years ago when I started my own healing, clearing, awakening journey. Must be something wrong with me. That's why my marriage ended. That's why my teenage kids are, doing what they're doing. That's why I still feel this way, even though it happened 20 years ago. That's why I'm depressed. That's why my life is a mess. That's why I never get ahead. That's why I'm not enough. That's XYZ. In other words, it's something to do with me and I need to be fixed. Well, my approach is very different. And what I thought I would do to kind of illustrate the approach that I take any time I work with people, either individually or they enroll in my wisdom school or I mentor them in my Sacred Ambition mentorship, is I begin to suggest and then they begin to experience that what if there's really nothing wrong with you? Your feelings are not wrong. Your thoughts are not wrong. Even what happened was not wrong. Okay, so let me share a story from the beginning of my book here. And I didn't name this particular client, but we'll just call her Susan. How's that? So this is her story. My husband and I had recently separated, and he'd insisted on keeping our children for half of the week. So when they were home with me from Saturday night to Wednesday morning, I held my life together. From Wednesday through Saturday, I fell apart. To escape my misery, I slept between 10 and 12 hours a night with intermittent morning and afternoon naps. The highlight of each day was watching the video, The Little House on the Prairie, at lunchtime. She goes on to say how she'd slipped into a real miserable abyss. She was taking antidepressants. She'd been there for a long time and really didn't know how to get out of it. She felt very distant. She felt alone. She felt lost. And except when her children were around, she really didn't want to live. She goes on to say, one evening, a friend gave me the phone number of a spiritual counselor she was working with. At the time, I was at the end of my rope. I decided to call. During our conversation, the counselor asked if I could commit to making a change in my life. This is often what I would ask each time anyone called me for any reason, because I was interested in working with people who wanted change, who wanted to shift, who wanted to climb out of that abyss wherever they were, from that shame hole or from that dark place that they were stuck in. I was interested in that. And she said yes, because she said without taking action, I would soon die. And when she came to my office, I remember this clearly, she just said, you need to fix me. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what's wrong, but it must be something to do with me. So we began to work together. And this was how she put it. Very gently, over the course of many sessions, my counselor introduced me to someone very important, myself. Accepting the presence of a divine spirit within me took some doing. Now, one of the things that people realize early on when they're working this approach is that we stop believing our feelings, we stop believing our thoughts, we stop believing our story. And when we open up with acceptance and forgiveness and compassion, which are 3 tools that I talk a lot about in this book, they're like the foundational tools of beginning to make your life a heaven. Where is that energy that comes from to clear away the hurt and the disappointment and the rejection? Well, it comes from the greater reality of who you are. And I call it your divine nature. And you can call it whatever you like, but it's basically the divine reality. It's the spirit of who you are. It's the spiritualness of who you are. I had been reared as a Southern Baptist in a small Texas town. I had learned strict rules and felt guilty every time I broke them. We were not taught to love ourselves, much less know ourselves. Very important. Nor would I have wanted to, since I was sure there were lots of bad forces inside of me. More than anything else, I was full of self-hatred. So right there, we can begin to see the keys, or not the keys, but the seeds. That was the word I was looking for, the seeds of where a lot of the self-negativity was planted. And this is very common. It doesn't, it's from our family of origin, it's from the conditioning that we were raised in. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a religion, it could just be in the family we were raised in, or the socioeconomic group, or whatever. In other words, the seeds were planted in there that you don't know yourself, you certainly don't love yourself, and anything you do that's wrong, mistake, anything that goes bad, you're the blame of it. So she goes on to say, with the counselor's help, I slowly began to reclaim myself and set forth on a path to self-love. The journey was painful, scary, confusing, challenging, fascinating, and beautiful. Now there's another key in there that she talks about, and that is that she was introduced to who she was, her true self. Our true self is our heaven. And in the magic eye picture that I talked about in the first video, our true self is there, already present behind all of the self-hatred, all of the depression, all the story, and all the other things that we're holding against ourselves in our life. So she didn't need fixing, she needed loving. And as she began to love all the parts of herself, no matter how upset or how ugly, she began to realize that if she loved all of herself, then that's when her heaven began to emerge. So again, this is a 7-part video series, 7 keys to make your life a heaven. And the next key I will be talking about is wake up from the knock on the door. So until next time, I hope you join me again for one of my keys. And until next time, heavenly blessings to you.